Welcome to lesson number 6 in the B book, and this one is, it starts to get kind of fun for students because we're starting to play notes at the same time, more than one note at a time. We've been doing one note at a time all the way through, and we started talking about seconds, we've been talking about thirds. Now we're going to start playing 2 at the same time. Kids like doing this. It is more complicated, not a hard thing. I do want to say, though, that this is really the point where if you're not helping your child keep their hands up and their fingers down and keeping those rounded fingers, if you're not keeping that good posture during the practice time, they really are not going to have the strength to be able to keep their fingers in the proper position to be able to play a lot of music. I tell you, I can't always tell if students have been practicing or not, because sometimes the kids can come in and sight read really well, and they just nail it, and it's super because they're at that age when they're learning so fast and they just don't need to practice. And then there's days when they practice at home and they come in and they just bomb, and it's like, oh, what happened? And you just don't know. It's like the stock market over time. If they practice at home over time, they're gonna incrementally get better. But I can't tell if they've practiced that week. But one thing I can tell is if we have gone through all of these weeks and maybe a year together, and the child still has bad posture at home while they play, and they're kind of doing this, and they're just not, their hands are not above the keyboard and their fingers are not round when they play. Their fingers are going to be doing this when they play. They go concave. So instead of this, they play this. Or they play perfectly straight and they start to do this. This is such a bad form. As they become more advanced, they have to break that. It will not sound good if they can't do it. And once we get into more advanced playing, and they can play all these chords together, and they start playing a little faster, if we have to go back and teach them how to hold their fingers and have to undo this, it's extremely difficult because they're playing too many notes at the same time, and then they have to go back and think about one finger. It's too much for their minds to handle, well, for any of us to handle, when you have 10 things going on in your head and then we have to correct something. So the reason why I'm on my soapbox in this video is because I really want to make sure that at this point, if this is something that hasn't been done, we really have to do it now. We've got to build that strength, or we're running towards a wall, and we don't want to do that. So anyway, here are our intervals. Instead of playing our intervals one at a time, now we're going to be playing them as chords. We're going to be playing them as chords. 2 new words we're introducing is melody. A melody is just the song. It's how we recognize a song, by the melody. And in harmony is what happens in the left hand usually. And so this is our harmony, and we're going to start working on harmony. Harmony is 2 notes at the same time. And that's all the child will remember, is harmony is 2 at the same time. And I use the word chords to describe what's going on here. So the first one is the second and third. And make sure that as you're watching the child play, they keep this that they're not doing this. It is tempting to play like this because it works, but we don't want that. We want it to be up. The thumb needs to still be played a little bit on its side where it's pointing towards the black keys. If the child's having trouble with keeping their fingers round, another way is to get that wrist up. If that wrist is too low, it's easy not to have round fingers because it's more work. If your wrist is down here and you're trying to lift your fingers, that's hard. So if the wrist is up, the fingers, watch what happens. The fingers just naturally point down. It's work to pull them up. So getting that wrist up just solves a ton of problems. And then once it's up, watch their fingers, make sure they're round, make sure they're still holding that bubble when they play. Having practiced this, remind them of the word melody, and then this is just 2 at the same time. Fast, fast, slow. That we're in all of these chords, we're staying with G. the G is always the top one. We're not playing this, it's the top. So we're playing 1 and 3 and 1 and 2 at the same time. And they need to practice that a little bit. You can have them play different little things if you'd like, just to have them practice keeping their fingers nice and strong. All right, so that's the first one. The second one is 15, and it sounds like this. Starts on a half note. We start it with forte. And here comes our harmony. 2, 3, 4, lift, and then they go right back into melody again. So melody and harmony here. And really, it's all in the hands. Work on getting those wrists up and relaxed. If they need to relax, this is a good way to shake. But really, I think that we don't have too much trouble with too much tension at this point. It'll work itself out quickly. And then the second one, the next one we're playing this week also goes with the pop song also. And this we just watch. We're just practicing this. This is the one you'll start with at home. Page 8 in the technique book. It's the harmonic harmonies. And it sounds like this. Watch to make sure they have round fingers. Half note. Finishes on the second. And the second, third, second, third. Half note. That's the only thing you have to work on with the books, is just making sure that they can work on that with their left hand, and they get the same idea with their right hand, 1 and 2. So watch for those round fingers. Make sure they're playing close to their fingernails. And then the paperwork that goes with this. Now we're doing the melodic intervals with this one, and then we're also going to be doing the harmony, where we're drawing in harmony. First we're doing melodic, where they draw the one next to it. It's just more harmony. But then here we do the same, we play them both at the same time. So we need to be able to recognize what they look like. These seconds are next to each other because they don't fit on top of each other like they do with the thirds. But it's the same thing. Line to space, or with the third, space, space, or line, line. And then with the seconds, you have one of each. So they can practice drawing those in. And those are the 3 pages for the paperwork for this week. All right, good luck.